Hey y'all, it's Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am coming to you with a classics reading vlog, but the vlog is going to have a very interesting theme. This reading vlog, as you might can tell, is themed around reading the classic that inspired my favorite music video of BTS's. I want to go on and say it is really just going to be basically a true classics reading vlog. The vlog is going to be about the book, so you don't really need to be into BTS or have seen the music video to watch this vlog, but I will link the music video down below, and I think if you're into BTS, it will add to your enjoyment of this vlog because I'm really excited about this. And one of the things that really gets me inspired about BTS is that they are apparently very bookish and they put quite a bit into their art. And I think maybe the best way to start it would be to explain to you who BTS is if you don't know who they are. So BTS is, I think actually right now, the world's largest musical group, and they are a K-pop group. So they are a group of 7 Korean guys who sing and dance and have really wonderful uplifting pop music. I really love BTS because their message is very much love yourself, accept yourself, you're never alone. I think that's an incredible message for young people, and I think it's a really great one for a group, a musical group, and it's not something that I remember seeing in my teenage years. So I really just love and respect BTS for their message, but I also just adore their music and I adore them. And the leader of BTS is a guy called Namjoon. He's also called RM, Rap Monster is his stage name, but he is an incredibly bookish guy. He's somebody who reads quite a bit. And one of his favorite books is a book that inspired my favorite music video of theirs, which is Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And that book is called Demian, and it's by Hermann Hesse. So this is a modern classic. It was published in 1919, I believe, and it's rather short. That's not really going to inspire me much because reading has not been on the forefront of my brain lately. It's taken a lot out of me, and it really is taking me a lot to focus. So I think it's going to take me a little while to get through, and I'm going to be reading this with a friend who is also Army. So we're going to be taking our time with this and dissecting it alongside the music video, which I think is going to be a whole lot of fun. I'm going to take you through some notes that I took the other day. So I got out my book journal. I wanted to make sure that I had some notes about the music video and about the history of the classic. This is something that I've kind of started doing in recent months, is just going on and taking a few notes on a classic and basically contextualizing the author. Basically, a lot of it is writing down when the book was written, the context of the time period, and really the themes and messages of the book. And so in some ways, I know where this book is going because I've already looked at themes, and I think quite a bit of it is spoiled in the Blood, Sweat, and Tears music video, which is fine by me. A good book can't be spoiled, that's my opinion. And so I'm really excited to go into this, and I'm excited about the fact that I actually know quite a bit about it. So I'm just going to take you through my notes. So I have some notes on the book itself, and then I have a few notes on the music video because a quote from this is said by RM in the music video, and so maybe let's do that first. This is already a very chaotic intro, I'm sorry. So Blood, Sweat, and Tears was one of the first intros to BTS that I had. It is a music video that came out in 2016, and it's such a dreamy, ethereal song, which is kind of why I like BTS. There are a lot of songs of theirs that feel like that to me, that just feel very dreamy. And so Blood, Sweat, and Tears feels very dreamy. And when you look at the lyrics of the song is really kind of about giving into the temptation of a toxic relationship, you might say. But the music video puts the lyrics in a different light, in my opinion. And all of this ties into Demian, which I think is going to be very interesting. I think this was a really great intro to BTS. It was one of the first things I saw by them. I saw their carpool karaoke with James Corden first, and I was like, oh, who are they? They're really cute. And then I saw Dope, which is a music video and a song from 2015. It is iconic. I'm sorry. The choreography in that is insane. And from there, I found Blood, Sweat, and Tears, which was an entirely different vibe and is not necessarily what I thought BTS was all about. This is when I first started getting hints that BTS was really going for a deeper meaning in a lot of their music. And so this has remained my favorite music video of theirs. I think you'll see why this is a music video that appeals to me personally. It's really a lot about art. And so the music video kicks off, they're kind of in a museum setting. There's a lot of art around. There is statues of like Perseus with the head of Medusa. But interestingly, there is a painting on one of the walls that is, if I'm not mistaken, it is The Fall of the Rebel Angels by Peter Bruegel. And so this is a really interesting picture that sets the tone for the entire music video, sets the tone for the lyrics, and I think is also indicative of the tone of what Demian is going to be. So one of the members, Jin, stands in front of this painting, and so he's kind of split down the middle. This painting is really interesting in its coloration because one side of it looks far lighter, one side of it looks far darker. And so this is a really compelling image, and that's really this whole music video. Every frame of this music video is a piece of art in and of itself. It's just really beautiful. This sets up Jin as one of the main kind of characters of the music video, if you will. And so Jin is a really interesting person to pick for this, and I'll get into that. But one thing you notice as it goes from this kind of intro period of them having fun in this museum, Jin seeing this picture, when the song hits and they enter into the choreography, there is a lot about covering the eyes, and specifically covering a member named Jimin's eyes. Jimin is who I would say is the other main character of this piece. Jimin is my bias. If you know anything about K-pop, your bias is your favorite member. Jimin is my bias in BTS. So I was really into this music video because I think it is a great one for him specifically. It's a great one for everybody, but I think what they do with Jimin and Jin is just so very interesting. But there is always kind of this emphasis on covering the eyes. It's even a move in the choreography, and everyone does it. But throughout the music video, Jimin is blindfolded, his eyes are covered. It's really interesting. RM is shown drinking absinthe, which I assume is probably a hint to Demian and the time in which Demian was written. And I'm skipping around a lot, and I'm sure I'll come back to very specific moments. These are just moments that I really want to pay attention to as I get into the book. And the next point that I really want to get into is towards the end of the music video. Jin is shown with this large statue that is shown with wings behind him, and kind of in a way is figured as Lucifer, I would say, which gets into a larger theme in this music video in my opinion. But it shows Jin kind of going up to the larger statue, and then he kisses it, which I think is so interesting. There's a lot of figuring of Jin as mythological figures, in my opinion, in a lot of their music videos, specifically in this one. But I think this is kind of a giving in to sin. The lyrics of the song are kind of talking about maybe a toxic relationship. The music video makes you think it's kind of a larger relationship that you have with doing evil things. After this, Jin is shown sitting in front of a mirror, and he's shown with a narcissus, I believe. He's often also always kind of figured as a narcissus figure. This is interesting because if you were new to BTS, Jin is talked about as kind of worldwide handsome. That's one of his nicknames, is that he's a really good looking guy. And so it's interesting to have him figured as Narcissus. This is not the only music video where it happens. So he stares into a mirror, I believe, rather than into water, which is the typical kind of thing from the Narcissus myth. So he stares into the mirror and he starts to crack, just like the statue. This speaks to another literary reference, in my opinion, which is definitely Dorian Gray, but we can get into that at a later date. Jimin also starts to cry tears of green, which is just really interesting and also mimics another piece of artwork in the music video. And so to me, this is kind of like, we talk a lot about art imitating life. This music video seems to really be talking about life imitating art, which I just think is fascinating. I love this music video. There's so much to think about here. And you might can tell from some of what I've said, there's also really a religious undertone to this, in my opinion, in the relationship that you have with sin, because there are a lot of religious art pieces in this music video. So of course, first we have The Fall of the Rebel Angels. We have the Pietà by Michelangelo. which J-Hope is shown in front of a lot. And then we have them sitting around a larger table, which I think, of course, kind of calls back to The Last Supper by Da Vinci. So a lot of my favorite art pieces are in this. My favorite artwork in this music video is... Now, how did that get there? Okay, sorry, that's a mistake. Definitely a contender for one of my favorite works of art in this music video, but not what I was going to say. My actual favorite artwork in this is, of course, the Pietà. There's a lot of dark imagery with this artwork, in my opinion. So I think this is all going to tie hand in hand with Demian. And if you want to know, the quote that RM says in the middle of Blood, Sweat, and Tears is a direct quote from Demian. And he says, "He too was a tempter. He too was a link to the second, the evil world with which I no longer wanted to have anything to do." And so there's a lot of duality. That's the word I'm looking for. There's a lot of duality in this music video, and from what I have seen, the research I have done on Demian, duality is a major theme in Demian as well. Wikipedia told me that the central theme of Demian is the process of discovering a deep, true inner self and the struggle between two worlds, so the world of illusion and the real world. And that's a theme that's definitely present in the Blood, Sweat, and Tears music video, because they're kind of having fun on the surface, but something deeper is going on with a lot of the members. And so it's really interesting to me how they took this book and transformed it into this really beautiful music video. But what's also really interesting is that in general, I think this is a larger theme for Korean media, is this kind of duality between two worlds. And specifically, it is a big deal in K-pop, because I'm thinking specifically of Taemin's idea, which is like becoming a new version of yourself, becoming the best version of yourself. EXO has a thing with clones, where you're fighting kind of an evil version of yourself and your evil side often wins. There's also ATs. They also have kind of an evil version of themselves, I believe. So it's interesting that this is just a wider theme in K-pop, and maybe it's a wider theme in Korean culture, because Demian is apparently an incredibly famous book in Korea, and it's a book that they study. And it's interesting, it's not a book that I've ever come across, and I don't think I would ever have heard of it were it not for BTS talking about it. And I was reading a lot of articles about why this book in particular has struck such a chord, not only with BTS, but with Korea in general. Why is this such a big book to be taught? Why is this so popular there? And a lot of what I've seen is just that in Korea, a sadder story is more appreciated. A book with a sad outcome, and maybe even a book that when you're reading it, you know that the main character is never going to get out of this situation. That is something that we find frustrating here in the West, and specifically in America, where we are really like, make yourself better, get out of this situation, and always have kind of a hopeful undertone. It was a really interesting article. If I can find it, I will link it down below. But that in Korea, they're very patient with those types of stories, and those tend to be stories that hit more for them emotionally, which I think is very interesting. So I have not started this yet. I just wanted to record a few initial thoughts about the music video and then about the book. So I'm going into this wanting to find out why certain things happened in the music video. What is the symbology of covering their eyes? There's often a lot too of kind of like levitating or falling backwards, which I'm not sure how that's going to tie in, but that's something that sticks out to me quite a bit. I will, of course, leave this linked down below if you would like to watch the music video and follow along with me. I will try to make this a non-spoiler vlog. It's a very short book, but I am going to talk about the themes and everything, which if you consider those a spoiler, you might consider this a spoilery vlog. I'm apprehensive because this is a modern classic. And so I don't know that my relationship with modern classics is really the best, specifically modern classics that came after World War I, after the start of World War I. I think there is a real kind of philosophical nature to them, and there's also a really dark side to them that I don't know that I'm really prepared to read right now. But I'm gonna give this a go, and maybe it'll prove me wrong. And so I'm going to be annotating this. I'm gonna annotate it for quotes, I'm going to annotate it as well for instances that I think are specifically referenced in the music video. And then also, I'm just going to be annotating for theme. I'm really interested to see what RM specifically got out of this book. Namjoon is my second or third bias in BTS, because actually right now I'm really into Suga. Suga is my second bias right now. The entirety of BTS is my bias line. Let's just say it. Let's get it out of the way. I love everyone in BTS. Jimin is my bias though. I love Jimin so much. I just love everyone in BTS, and I think actually everyone in BTS read this book. And Suga said this was super depressing the first time he read it, and then the second time he read it, he really appreciated it for what it was. I'm scared if Suga called it depressing, because I've seen the books he reads. He does not read what you would call happy, light fiction. He really reads some heavy stuff. So the fact that he's calling this depressing doesn't really inspire me. But I'm excited about the religious aspect of it in particular. I think that's going to be genuinely fascinating. So I'm excited to get into this, and my goal is to check in with you every 100 pages. So I don't know when this will be finished up, because I am reading it with someone else. So I don't know when we will finish this up, but I'm excited about it. So my goal is going to be to check in every 100 pages. I think that'll be good. This is a shorter book, and I've already been talking for 20 minutes. I apologize. So I thought this would be a fun one to do. I would really like to record my thoughts on it, and I would like to do, just in general, more classics reading vlogs. So I'm excited about this. I thought we could go through some BTS stuff together, if that might be fun. I don't really have, none of these are BTS albums, but these top two. The rest of these, this is EXO, basically, and Super M. And yeah, I've lost control of my life. I am organizing my desk right now. That's where these are gonna go. So I might carry you along for that, if you would be interested in it at all, seeing me set up my desk, because these have got to go. This is not where they belong. This should be a book space for me. And every time I come in here, I just pick up one of these and start going through the photo book. And I really just need this to be the relaxing book space in my room. So these are gonna be leaving, but I'll carry you along with that if you would be interested in it. But that's all from me right now. I am excited to get started. Okay, coming to you with this vlog update from my new desk space, which looks very barren. And I will insert a clip that I took from when I first got the desk put together. And so it's not empty, because I kind of automatically needed a space to put my monitor and to put my laptop and everything. So it's not an empty clip, unfortunately, and I wish I had a good clip, not only of what the desk looked like blank, but what my desk setup looked like prior to getting this desk. And it was an absolute mess. Like, I literally had a card table set up for my crafting stuff, and a desk that I have had since middle school is what my monitor and everything was on. So I'm gonna kind of show you just a little bit here. Here's my monitor. I just got this. Sorry if I'm making you drunk, but I just got this. This is the happiest I have been, and I don't know when. I'm just so happy with this purchase. And so over here is kind of the corner of the L. And then right behind me, we have kind of my sticker organization area, which I am also just thrilled with. This is a makeup organizer. This is for lipsticks, actually. I'm using it for pins, and like, that's my little knife, my tweezers and everything. And then stickers and washi tape are included in some of these. I have a good cutting mat, you know, a self-healing mat for X-Acto. And then basically the walls are blank because I am going to be getting some shelving. And so yesterday, I went to IKEA. Me and my mom went down to IKEA in Charlotte, and let me go on and give you a piece of advice. This is some advice from me to you. If you have ever considered going to the IKEA in Charlotte, North Carolina, don't do it. That's my advice to you. If you value your sanity, let me tell you, there's nothing you want that bad. Me and my mom both said this when we walked out of IKEA yesterday. There is nothing we want that badly to go into that place again. It is a complete madhouse. People just run around like chickens with their heads cut off. But I did in fact get what I wanted. I am so pumped about this. So here we go. This is what I really wanted from IKEA. These are shelves that are shaped like cubes that can hang on the wall. So they're gonna go up here really. And so I got 3 of these. I wanted white. It said online that they had white ones. And when I got there and when I hunted them down in the storage area where they have all the furniture, there were no white ones. There were no pink ones, which I also would have liked. But this room that I'm in right now is kind of the craft office area. It is my office area. It was my office area when we were working from home. And so it's actually got more of a green, blue tint to everything. So this color works really, really well actually, and I'm very happy with it. Something else I got that I really wanted was this pegboard. And I did not bring it up here, so otherwise I would show it to you. I'll show it to you later. But this is kind of like, I think, one of the more iconic things from IKEA. It's a pegboard that you can clip different things on. You can put like a little shelf on. You can put hooks on and basically hang all of your different stuff off of this pegboard. And you can get them of varying sizes. And I'm gonna use it for crafting. I debated this when I put together this makeup thing on Friday, and when I got these little things, these little drawers are from the Dollar Tree. Is that not just amazing? I love the Dollar Tree. But when I got everything together, this makeup thing, this stuff that I'd gotten at the Dollar Tree a really long time ago, this pink stuff, I started saying to myself, do I really need the pegboard? And I was basically to the conclusion that no, I do not. And so I decided that I really didn't want that. But when I saw it at IKEA, I just needed it. You know, sometimes you've built something up in your mind and you have to have that. Your dream has to come true. And so I did achieve my dream of getting the pegboard. The question is now, where is it going to go? Because I don't think realistically it can go right here. I think that's where it's gonna have to go, because I wound up getting one that has to go vertically. I wanted one that was horizontal. But the cubes are gonna go right here. So that's where the cubes are gonna go, 1, 2, 3. There's gonna be another shelf over here that's gonna house some books, I think specifically. And so I'm just really pumped about this. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm gonna have an organized desk area. And so I really want to put all of my crafting things together. So I have multiple different K-pop journals at this point. They need a place to go, and really it's just not realistic for them to take up so much space on my desk. But I also got, this is kind of the last component of everything that I got this weekend. I still need to, of course, put up the shelves and wonder what type of shelf is gonna go here. But I got today at Michael's, this was something that I wanted from IKEA that I did not see. Is kind of their version of the book cart. So I was thinking about that yesterday. I've seen a lot of people's desk setups that look really, really cute, and they have these carts just sitting around that have all of their crafting stuff, you know, little cute K-pop goodies in it. And I thought that would probably be ultimately useful for me because it could house stuff that I don't use all the time. They had a mini one, which is not as tall or as wide, which is the unfortunate thing. There's just not the amount of storage space, but really what am I gonna put in this? But K-pop albums, that's what we're about to do right now. And so I got a small one. It's black, really unfortunate. I wanted a blue one. And so right now it's gonna house my K-pop albums. I wanted to get these out of my room because the colors are just not jiving with my aesthetic in my room. My bedroom, and really I think in general, just my true aesthetic is really more cottagecore. This, the green in particular, is just not jiving with me up there. So we're gonna put these in this cart today, and I'm gonna update you on Demian. I am almost halfway through Demian. I know I said that I would update after every 100 pages, and I've discovered since I said that Demian is only a 200-page book. And so I think I'm at page 80. I'm maybe 3 chapters in. The chapters are fairly long. But before we get into kind of shelving the K-pop albums, I did want to tell you that I have been annotating this, but it has not been my standard way, which is normally with tabs. And I apologize too for the lighting and the glare in my glasses. I haven't been able to wear my contacts, and I don't know when. My eyes are so dry, but I'm trying to work with some natural lighting and it's not working with me. So I apologize for that glare, but I have been annotating Demian and I have been highlighting. That's what I've been doing mainly. So the highlighter colors do correspond to different themes and things that I'm trying to pay attention to. And sometimes I do write in the margins of the book. I'm not written in the margins too much because often when I've been reading this, I haven't had a pen around. But I have really been enjoying this, and I think it is largely because I have been annotating it. Sometimes annotating a book just really adds to the experience of reading it, in my opinion, and that's definitely the case with this one. I went into this with a clear plan, and I think that has, weirdly enough, genuinely been helpful for me because I've kind of been in a reading slump for basically the entire year. And I have just been struggling with it. And I think I went into this book with a plan, and that has been ultimately very helpful for me. And I'm really enjoying the book, which is another key part of it. I don't know if I would enjoy the book were I just reading it, but the fact that I am annotating it and kind of interrogating the text has added another layer to it for me personally that I don't think would be there had I just picked the book up on my own to read. But let's get started here. I'm sorry that y'all are not going to really be able to see this, but I'll show you as it happens. But I'm not in the mood to sit on the floor. I'm really not. So let's get started here. I think I'm going to put my big ones at the top. I love these. These are my Butter albums by BTS, which is appropriate because this is kind of a BTS reading vlog. They were given to me by a dear friend. They were the first in my K-pop collection, and you see how we have grown. And so I'm putting these in the cart kind of, not temporarily. I want this to be their permanent home, but I am doing this recognizing the fact that this is going to be a growing collection. So I'm gonna try to see how this goes and if ultimately I wanna use the cart as the space for them, or if I wanna use one of my 3 cubes that I can put up here. So let's just go through it. I think I'm gonna put my big albums. I don't know, what should I do? Let's go with big albums on the bottom. So one of the things about Demian is that I think it is more concept-based than plot or character-based, and I imagine that's going to really be a problem for a lot of readers. Now, I'm really enjoying that, I think, because I'm annotating it, so I'm really on the lookout for certain ideas and certain concepts, and that's largely why I'm enjoying the book, I think. But I think if you're going into this thinking of this as maybe a more traditional novel, I don't think it is formatted traditionally at all. This is in some ways a character study of the main character, Sinclair, but in many other ways it is just a vehicle for Hermann Hesse to talk about these really complex concepts that I think are probably speaking to the generation that was coming of age at the time in which he wrote this. So the book is called Demian, The Story of a Youth. And I've been doing some reading on the book itself, and a lot of people seem to say that kind of that subtitle, The Story of a Youth, could really be extrapolated and applied to the youth of Germany at the time in which this book was published. So 1919, 1920 is when this was published, fresh out of World War I. And that's definitely a theme that is present in this book, is kind of a disillusionment, learning about the so-called real world, transitioning from childhood to adulthood. And I imagine that there are elements to this book that really spoke to people and spoke to young people, young boys in particular, who maybe fought in World War I, and specifically in Germany, where they endured quite a large defeat in World War I, and really a lot of fighting in their own home territory. Now, I don't claim to know very much about World War I. I wish I knew more, but I'm more familiar with World War I than I am World War II. And I think the most fascinating thing about World War I is that throughout the war, a way of life essentially died. There is a way of life prior to 1914, and there is a way of life after 1918, and they're very different. And so I think there is some of that present in this book, which is a theme that I think is genuinely fascinating. That's one of the elements of World War I that I think is most compelling and is most sad, is that people went into this war one way, and when they left, life was just totally different. And the way of warfare was, of course, also totally different in World War I. So this is a really traumatic and hard time period in which Hermann Hesse is writing this. I'm torn now going through this. Do I want to keep bands together? So essentially everything I have here is EXO. I have 2 BTS albums, the Butter albums, and I have Super M. And Super M is kind of adjacent to EXO because some EXO members are in Super M. And so I have actually subunits from EXO. So certain members from this group will break off and do their own songs. And so I have their albums, and then I have a solo album from one of my favorite members of EXO, Baekhyun. And so do I want to keep those together? I think so. And then we'll just keep the more general EXO albums together on a different shelf. One thing I want to say is I think that Demian is incredibly beautifully written. That has been one of the best parts of reading it, in my opinion, is just so lyrically and beautifully written. And I think that will compel a lot of people. But in the end, I'm struggling with, even though I'm loving the book, I'm struggling with the idea of how I would recommend this to somebody, if there is a certain reader that I would recommend this to. And I think it would have to be somebody who is comfortable with a book being more about a concept or an idea than being about a character or being about a plot. There is a plot in this book, but it just doesn't seem all that important compared to what he is trying to tell you on a conceptual level. So these are my EXO SC albums. These are my favorite albums that I own. They're so cute. They're so cute. They came in this bag. I don't know why we did this. Why did we do this? But there's a little sticker on the back, which is so cute. And they are my favorite subunit from EXO. So they're so cute. This is their other album, which is so cute. So let's put them away. Baekhyun is also going to go with them. These are actually my 2 odds and ends albums. So this is Super M, and this is by 17. So they are gonna have to go together somewhere else. This is my first EXO album, and it is my favorite EXO album. I'm gonna show you why. The concept of this album really goes well with what I'm talking about with Demian, because in Demian, one of the key concepts is this idea of there being 2 worlds. There's kind of the good, pure world that you were exposed to as a child, and then there is a darker, more evil world that I think you come to terms with and you realize, and you also maybe embody, you maybe want to go into this world the older you get, which is maybe a darker world and a world of sin, because there is a lot of religious imagery in this book. And this is really interesting because it is a key concept in a lot of K-pop. For me, is this idea of a darker self, maybe an evil version of you that you are consistently fighting. And Obsession is a really interesting album because that is what it is going with. That is the concept of this entire album, is good versus evil, and the EXO members fighting an evil version of themselves. So Obsession is a song that on the face of it, when you first listen to it and you first read the lyrics, you're thinking, okay, this is about a toxic relationship, that somebody is obsessed with you and somebody is tempting you, wanting you to do the wrong thing. And the very last line of the song is they find out who it is, and it's themselves looking in the mirror. And so you find out that the song is actually that you've been fighting a darker part of yourself, which is really interesting. And I'll link to that music video down below because it shows them fight their evil version. And so that's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. And I have the version of the album that is just their evil clones, because look at this. I just think this is insane. The makeup, isn't this just amazing? The evil versions of them, it's just insane. Look at him. This was stunning. This was definitely just a moment. In terms of makeup and fashion, oh my gosh, let me show you this one. Look at this. Incredible. And one of the concepts behind this album too is that every other song is the evil version or the good version. And so the songs alternate in tone, which is just fascinating. And one of the songs is called Jekyll, which very much examines kind of this darker, evil version of yourself housed within you, because of course it is making reference to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So this kind of goes hand in hand with what I'm talking about here with Demian. Since this is one of my favorites, I'm putting this on the top. And so going along with that, there's definitely this element of two worlds at play, and Sinclair, the main character, is certainly aware of these worlds, and Demian as a character is somebody who is trying to introduce him to this darker version of the world and say, yes, things are taboo, but if you live in this kind of world, you will be allowed to do things that normal people can't do. And there's an element to Demian's character. I don't want to spoil anything, but I honestly believe Demian is not human. And I think the reason his name is spelled Demian, D-E-M-I-A-N, instead of Damien, and here we go, just spiraling here, but I think maybe he's a demon. I just feel like maybe in a certain way that's how the book describes him, as somebody who is otherworldly, who is old, like an ancient being in a young person's body, that he always talks like an adult and not a child. But now I'm thinking about it, okay, The Omen, Demian was the name of that child. Am I right? I think that I'm right. I think this is a conspiracy theory and it's absolutely not true, but that's the way it feels, because Demian is definitely really blasphemous, and kind of his conversation with Sinclair about certain biblical stories is just blasphemous, you know, and Sinclair is really having a hard time with that, and having a hard time with thinking critically about biblical stories. One example was Cain. Cain and Abel is a big theme in this book. And Sinclair is figured as kind of an Abel character. And Abel was murdered by Cain in the Bible, if you don't know. So Cain and Abel were brothers, and Cain killed Abel. It's one of the more famous stories. And so in the book, Sinclair is figured as kind of an Abel figure. And then Demian is sort of a Cain figure in that way, and he is constantly defending Cain and defending the fact that Cain killed a weaker person, and the strong should kill the weak. And it's just an interesting theme, and I wonder what it's setting up between their relationship. There's also a tone to their relationship that's quite romantic, in my opinion. I know I just said that my XOSC albums are my favorites, but it's this. Look at this. So this is the only collection of albums that I've completed. Look at the spine. It actually spells out their logo. If I can get them to be even, it actually spells out their logo. So EXO. Incredible. This is my favorite concept because it is so tropical and just summery. I mean, look at this. They're like in a botanical garden. It's just stunning. In terms of how this relates to BTS's Blood, Sweat, and Tears, I'm really at a loss. There's not much that overtly signals that the music video and that the song have anything to do with Demian, but I think it is also, again, on a conceptual level. So I was wondering why they constantly were covering members' eyes in the choreography. I think that symbolizes you waking up to this other world. And I think probably that's also kind of the symbolism of them falling backwards a lot, of RM with the absinthe. And RM is like also in a weird study. He looks like he's in kind of an academic setting with the smoke. And it's a really beautiful music video. That's why it's my favorite. But it's also very conceptual in a way. And I think something that I thought was going to be more present in the book just based on the music video, I definitely thought there was going to be more reference to art. Art plays such a massive role in the music video that I really thought that certain pieces of art even would play a really large role in the book. And maybe in a way, BTS is interpreting this as artistic. And so maybe that's why they went with this vibe and with this emphasis on art. But I think also maybe the art is just meant to stand in for these larger religious conversations that are happening in the book. So another instance in Demian that I just thought was fascinating. This is about the criminals who were crucified alongside Jesus. So if you don't know, Jesus was crucified alongside two criminals. On the cross, one of the criminals says, truly, this man was the Son of God, and he really doesn't deserve to be up here with us. The other criminal really just says nothing, but the criminal who spoke for Jesus, Jesus kind of turns and says, truly I say to you, this day you'll be with me in paradise, which is my favorite Bible verse. So this was kind of a hard thing to read. That is, in fact, my favorite instance in the Bible, is when Jesus says that to the criminal on the cross with him. Because to me, and I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who is of the Christian faith, for me, I love anytime Jesus says, truly I say to you. This is a big theme. He always says this because to me, God can't lie. So when Jesus says, truly I say to you, he means it. And that is absolutely something that's going to happen. And it's just like a really moving moment to me that Jesus as a man suffering on the cross, is willing to offer forgiveness to this man. I mean, I just think it's a really beautiful moment in the Bible, and Demian interprets this as kind of a fable, and he interprets a lot of the Bible as kind of a fable. So this is what he has to say on that. There's something in this, Sinclair, which I don't like. Read through the story, consider it. There's something there which sounds insipid. I mean, this business of the two thieves. It's sublime, the three crosses standing side by side on the hill. But what about this sentimental story of the honest thief, which reads more like a tract? First, he was a criminal who had perpetrated crimes and God knows what, and now he breaks out in tears and is consumed by feelings of contrition and repentance. I ask you, what's the sense of such a repentance 2 steps from the grave? It's nothing but a real parson's story, mawkish and mendacious, larded with emotion and having a most edifying background. If today you had to choose one of the 2 thieves as your friend, or if you consider which of the 2 you would the sooner have trusted, it would most certainly not be this weeping convert. No, it's the other, who's a real fellow with plenty of character. He doesn't care a straw about conversion, which in his case can mean simply nothing more than pretty speeches. He goes his way bravely to the end without being such a coward as to renounce the devil in the last moment, who up to that point has had to help him. He is a character, and in biblical history, people of character always come off second best. I was just stunned. I was genuinely stunned by this passage. The conversation about Cain was interesting to me, but it didn't hit me like this. But for me, conversations like this are really important in literature, and I think are really profound to have, and I think are really interesting as a Christian. I'm really fascinated by this. I think there's a lot of value to me in reading a different perspective because it often throws into sharp relief why I believe the things that I believe when I learn somebody else's interpretation of events. And I also think we're just meant to question. And so this is a really interesting conversation that Sinclair as a character is really uncomfortable with because even as he's moving into kind of the darker, more sinful world, he is uncomfortable with maybe this conversation around the crucifixion, which has always been a big moment for him in the story. And he's even said, up to this point, he's kind of moving away from religion, but he would never say outright that he doesn't believe in God. I think he has more trouble with kind of the functional, more business-like side of the church. And so maybe these conversations with Demian are going to really make him transition into the darker, more sinful world. But maybe it's also going to strengthen his ties to kind of the nicer, happier world. And so I think it's interesting how the 2 worlds are talked about in terms of conception. So kind of this nice, happy world as being the world of youth, being the world of a child when you have not woken up to kind of the realities of the rest of the world. And this darker world being something that you experience as you get older and as you discover sex, as you discover violence, as you go to war for the first time. And so I really see that this book is multi-layered, and I see that this book had to have been a massive, massive hit at the time of its publication. I don't know why this is the first time I'm coming in contact with it. I think we should be studying this book in schools. And I hope in Germany they do study this in school. I'm sure they do. But this is genuinely fascinating. And right now, I don't want to give it too much early praise halfway through. The book is sitting at a 5-star for me. Like, I think it is genuinely fascinating. The amount of times that I have closed the book and just sat there with my thoughts and processed what was said, processed how the characters discussed historical events, discussed biblical events, discussed what they believe. It has been genuinely electrifying to me in a way that I never expected it. So I'm really loving this so far, and I will update you when I have finished it. I am way too far into the buddy read. I've blown past my friend who I'm buddy reading this with, and so I really need to slow down, but I'm just obsessed with it. Okay, I need to wrap up the blog, and I need to wrap it up quickly because I see that the video so far is over an hour, so I hope I can edit it down. But first of all, desk update. This is a disappointing desk update. The cube shelves, we have discovered that there was a special kit you were supposed to buy so that you could hang those on the wall. Because they are cubes, they are technically shelves that you could sit on the floor and stack. And so I assume not everyone wanted to hang them on the wall. And so now, kind of have to plan another day, another time to go down to IKEA because their shipping is ridiculous. Also, my little K-pop cart, my K-pop album cart, when I put something in the cart, in the tiers of the cart, it is now too tall to slide under my desk. And the whole point of getting the mini cart was that I thought, okay, easily it will slide under my desk, roll under my desk, roll in and out. So that's not really working either, but that's okay. That can sit on the outside of the desk, but that's the desk update right now. So it's not finished, and it didn't get finished in this vlog, but that's okay. Something that did get finished in this vlog, I am proud to say, is Demian. It is the third book that I finished this year, and I'm feeling so proud, and I don't want to say it too early, but I really think this has cured me of my reading slump because this reading experience was genuinely incredible. And I have completely finished this book, and my friend who I was buddy reading this with, I don't know that she's even gotten out of chapter 1 yet, but she said it was okay because I just was really in the mood for it, and I just highlighted, annotated. Oh my gosh, it was incredible. And I think this is not only my favorite book of the year so far, which isn't saying much when you've only read 3 books. I think this is one of my favorite books I have ever read in my life. It is absolutely incredible. And everything that I was questioning in that last clip, that I was questioning where the art was in the book, I just really needed to wait. That became the larger part of the second half of the book. And I will say, I think the second half of the book was much slower and wasn't as enjoyable for me as the first half of the book was. The first half was more religious based. The second half became kind of embracing this darker secondary world, and it became very cerebral in a way that it was hard for me to conceptualize. And I think I also said in that previous clip that I didn't really see much overt reference to the Blood, Sweat, and Tears music video. I didn't see much that the Blood, Sweat, and Tears music video was referencing explicitly. Again, I just needed to wait because there is this big emphasis on a portrait of a bird, and on a bird in particular in the second half of the book. That's a big theme, and I completely forgot about this when I rewatched the music video earlier to finalize my thoughts. It showed up so many times in that music video, and it's just amazing to me. Really, I walked out of this book with a greater respect for BTS as artists, and my respect for them was already very, very high. I just can't believe the instances where they pulled just very specific details from one line here or there and really extrapolated it and made it a massive detail in that music video. For example, there is just kind of one line here talking about this color green that he uses when he paints. And that green is the green of Jimin's tears. It is the green of the smoke where Namjoon is. And also, speaking of Namjoon, I think Namjoon in the music video is meant to represent a specific character in this book, who is a massive character in the second half of this book who serves as a guide for Sinclair. There is a lot of Dante in this book, so I'm very, very happy. There is a lot of Dante. One girl is talked about as a Beatrice figure. He kind of just names her Beatrice because he never speaks to her, which in fact is very Dante-esque because Dante barely ever spoke to Beatrice, really. But there's also just this emphasis on a character being a guide for Sinclair and showing him this other world, kind of in a Virgil-like way. This book I mean, I almost don't have words for it, which is a crazy thing to say when I have spoken about it clearly for an hour. And so I just really am so glad BTS introduced me to this. There is such a beautiful passage here at the very, very end of the book about World War I. And all men were like brothers. They had in mind their country and their honor, but it was fate. They peeped for a moment into the unveiled face. Young men came out of barracks, stepped into trains, and on many a face I saw a sign, not ours, a beautiful and dignified sign, signifying love and death. I as well was embraced by people I had never seen before. I understood and responded gladly. It was an atmosphere of intoxication in which they moved, not that of a fated will, but the intoxication was sacred. It was due to the fact that they had all looked into the rousing eyes of destiny. I mean, wow. And the theme of destiny was so large in this book and was so present. Fate, embracing fate. How do you know what your fate is? This theme of knowing what you're going to do with your life. Sinclair doesn't know what he wants to do with his life. He is lost. It really speaks to, I would imagine, the lost generation of World War I. But it also spoke pretty deeply to me as a millennial. And I think it is probably something that speaks to the situation that we are going through ongoing in the world, a global pandemic, and many, many more things that are just very heavy, very hard to deal with. And how do you deal with that? What do you do? And what are your dreams now that the world is a different place than what you thought it was going to be? This is a beautiful book. And then there is this passage about music. So he discovers a guy playing music who becomes a really important character. But he says that, he hears this music from a church, and he says, which seemed to make the music ring out like a prayer. I had the feeling that the man who was playing knew a treasure was shut up in the music, and he struggled and tapped and knocked to get at the treasure, as if his life depended on his finding it. In the technical sense, I do not understand very much about music, but this form of the soul's expression I have from my childhood intuitively understood. I feel music is something which I can comprehend without initiation. And then further down, everything he played was pious, expressing faith and devotion, but not pious like churchgoers and clergymen, but like pilgrims and beggars of the Middle Ages, pious with a reckless surrender to a world feeling which was superior to all confessions of faith. Wow, I cannot believe somebody wrote that. And all the pieces said the same thing, all expressed what the musician had in his soul, longing, a longing to identify oneself with the world and to tear oneself free again, listening to the workings of one's own dark soul, an orgy of devotion and lively curiosity of the wonderful. I mean, what do you say? I don't even know what to say to that. This was truly magical, and I'm so glad I read it. I'm so glad BTS introduced me to it. I have so much respect for them as artists, and now that I've read the book, going back and watching the music video, there are things that should have stood out to me that I should have been looking for, but I didn't know anything about until I had read the book. I'm serious. There were a couple of instances where it was one sentence that they took and made into a major detail in this music video. And so I encourage everyone to read this. I know I said in that last clip that I wasn't really sure who I would recommend this to. Who is the reader who would really enjoy this? I don't know that there are many readers who would truly enjoy it. Maybe enjoy is not the word, though I definitely enjoyed it. But I want to encourage everyone to give it a shot. I think it is a weirdly timely book. I think it will really speak to something that we as a culture are going through right now. And I think it is just a genuinely profound book in terms of religion, in terms of art, in terms of life view, in terms of growing up, coming of age. It's just a really wonderful, all-encompassing book. And I will say, though, this really won't work for everyone. What is the plot? Is the plot even important? Probably not. I think this book is, in many ways, just about the ideas. It is just about the message. And I think it is one of those books that's probably an English teacher's dream. There's so much to dissect here. There's so much to talk about. And I think it is a book that would benefit very greatly from being taught in schools, because I think it would be a great book to discuss with others and to play off of with others. I feel like a lot of books that we're assigned in school, we're told to kind of pick apart for symbology. And sometimes you think, did the author even intend this level of detail? What I'm having to do in school, did F. Scott Fitzgerald really want us to go on and on about the green light in The Great Gatsby? Maybe he did. This book feels intentionally geared towards that, like you are really supposed to interrogate the symbolism here. You were supposed to talk about the themes and the concepts. And I think that's the point of the book, which might make it a very difficult book for some readers to read, because I think to some people it will feel heavy-handed. But I really appreciated that it wasn't subtle. It wanted to talk about really deep, deep issues, and it talked about them blatantly. In many ways, I think that's because this book was really probably geared towards a younger audience, and I think it's incredibly valuable. So this is not just my favorite book of 2022 so far. It is, in fact, one of my favorite books I have ever read, one of my new favorite books of all time, and I just can't stop thinking about it. And it puts a smile on my face, a weird thing to say for a book that was quite deeply sad in places and was really contemplative and really dark in tone. And really the reading experience of it was so pleasant that I think it outweighed the fact that the book was very dark and sad, if that makes sense, because it made me really think, and I found that just a wonderful aspect of reading it, that every time I closed the book, I was left with something else to think about. And so the reading experience, not just the content of the book, and maybe more than the content of the book, the reading experience was such a joy. Annotating it, thinking about the music video, thinking about how I would discuss this book, it just was really an all-encompassing positive experience for me. And I think it has really aided me in getting out of a reading slump. But I am definitely going to wrap it up here because I have been talking and talking and talking. So I would love to know down below if you love BTS, who your bias is. I would love to know also if you have read this book. But that's going to be all for me today. I hope you're all having a great week. Happy reading. Goodbye.